terrible tragedy is unfolding in Yemen, and it's getting worse. Millions of people are stuck. Starving, sick, desperate. They have one message for the world. This war needs to stop.
Meanwhile, a new report by the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project claims the number of Yemenis killed since 2016 has reached 60,000. That figure is 6 times greater than the normally cited 10,000 dead. Andrea Carboni, one of the researchers behind the report, feels the crisis in Yemen has gone largely underreported
by the UN, the sole official figure since 2016, and still many newspapers and media outlets are still using that as a figure which significantly downplay the devastation. We know already there are pockets of famine reported in several areas, and 85,000 of people may have also die because of malnutrition and diseases connected to
My manager actually made sure that I had
to it.
Behind those figures are the tragedies of individual families. Here's one such story.
My daughter was suffering from diarrhea. We're dirt poor. We didn't have the money to afford her transportation and treatment. We couldn't even afford for her to have a drip. You see, we're so poor.
I have no money. That's why my daughter starved to death. I pray to God that our other children survive.
Still ahead, Washington unveils its new plan for Africa, criticising the presence of Russia and China there. More on that right after this break.
If we have a new trade arrangements with China, that may build a new foundation for more stable relations. I think broadly the U.S. has a problem in accepting the rise of China no matter what they do.
Welcome back to the Weekly. Another person has died of his injuries from the terror attack in Strasbourg earlier this week, bringing the number of victims to 5. A gunman opened fire on a crowded Christmas market before fleeing. A 2-day manhunt followed, ending in a gunfight with police during which the suspect was killed.
I saw a lot of people running. They were terrified. Children were crying. So I really
go further. Someone told us there was a gunman shooting at people, and we couldn't even get back home.
So we ended up being stuck here.
It's reported that the gunman shouted, "God is great" in Arabic as he started shooting. Authorities say he was a local who had likely been radicalized in prison. His father said his son supported Islamic State, believing its militants were fighting for a just cause. It's also been revealed he had an extensive police record and was on the French watch list of possible extremists.
Considering the target, the perpetrator's way of operating, his profile and the testimonies of those who heard him yell Allahu Akbar, anti-terror police have been called into action. Terrorism has once again struck our country.
We kept 1 minute of silence for the victim, as we do recently, as we're doing every time, and it's getting bad because we have done this a lot of time, this mandate. So that means we have to change policies to find the sources of the terrorism and to attack the sources, the reasons of the terrorism. We have to stop the wars in the Middle East. We have to reintegrate the marginalized youth in the suburbs of Paris and Brussels.
Islamist terrorist has committed a crime that was relatively easy to commit. I believe it is time to react. The terrorist who carried out this massacre yesterday was well known to the police, so why wasn't he detained in advance? We discuss it here in Strasbourg. With the EU having opened its borders, this free circulation of people has allowed criminals to move about freely. Every time we have such tragedy, we get back to the topic of border control, and I think we should take back control of the borders and make the criminals afraid again, because now they are not scared. Yet ordinary people are scared of going to Christmas markets with their kids, scared to go outside. It is not enough to light candles, to cry, to say, like they do all the time, "Je suis Charlie, je suis Strasbourg, je suis Bataclan."
New policy which he says will benefit the continent.
Across the continent, Russia advances its political and economic relationships with little regard to the rule of law or accountable and transparent governance. It continues to sell arms and energy in exchange for votes at the United Nations. China uses bribes, opaque agreements, and the strategic use of debt to hold states in Africa captive to Beijing's wishes and demands.
So with Bolton heavily critical of the role of Russia and China in the area, Lord Gaustiev has taken a closer look at America's own vision.
Disregarding that it reads more like a declaration of war than a strategy, this plan is for the good of Africa, promises John Bolton. This coming from a guy whose boss, Trump, infamously referred to several African nations as something that I can't mention on air.
The predatory practices pursued by China and Russia stunt economic growth in Africa, threaten the financial independence of African nations, and pose a significant threat to U.S. national security and
it's interesting logic. So when China or Russia or someone else you don't like lends an African nation money, that's debt colonialism, almost financial slavery. When America does it, it's investment. For Africa's own good. Worth mentioning is that Russia's trade with the continent paid with more to come.
China is willing to provide another $60 billion in support of Africa through government assistance, investment, and financing of financial institutions and enterprises.
The phrase, actions speak louder than words, is entirely applicable here. The Chinese leader, Xi Jinping, has visited Africa 9 times during his tenure. Trump once sent his wife. But what the United States might lack in tact, it more than makes up with guns. American troops are stationed in 50 out of